What will normal be? As many of you know, government officials have announced the gradual reopening of schools and non-essential shops in England. This is due to the reduction of COVID-19 cases thanks to the majority of us staying safe. By the time you read this, schools will already be open to certain year groups, and yesterday marked the reopening of non-essential shops too, something I didn't expect to see for a very long time. Many are eager to return to normal life, but it's difficult to say what normal might be. You may have noticed that I'm now using a whiteboard to keep things eco-friendly, and you now have the option to turn off subtitles if you find them distracting. Based on previous research, let's have a look at what normal might consist of. Stigma. Stigma can be thought of as disgrace associated with a person or group of people. In a mass comparison of studies, Samantha Brooks and colleagues found that quarantined participants reported being treated differently post-isolation. Many talked of others avoiding them, withdrawing social invitations, and treating them with fear and suspicion. This suggests that post-quarantine, many may be subject to the negative consequences that come with stigma. Stigmas can be harmful to those subject to them as they can result in maltreatment. In a comparison of isolated and non-isolated SARS participants, Yarmay Bai and colleagues found that quarantined participants were more likely to feel stigmatized and rejected in their neighborhood post-isolation. It was found that one of the main contributors to this stigmatization was overdramatic and inaccurate headlines in the media. The above findings highlight not only the importance of staying accurately informed, but also the necessity of community. Yes, things may be different, but this mustn't prevent us from working together. Please read my last article for more information on how to keep up to date during quarantine. We need to stick together after quarantine to ensure we can return to normal as soon as possible. Avoidance. Even as the risk of COVID-19 recedes, many of the behaviours we have developed may persist. In a study of SARS healthcare workers, Zdravko Marjanovic and colleagues found that many continued to exhibit avoidance behaviours after quarantine. We are all guilty of taking a step back when we hear someone cough or sneeze. However, these behaviours may continue. Others have found that quarantined patients continue to avoid crowded and public spaces post-isolation. This suggests that even when quarantine does come to an end and normal life is supposed to have resumed, the way we live may have been changed forever. While some of these behaviours may be beneficial if we are to avoid another global pandemic, we mustn't let it separate us from each other. If this emergency has taught us anything, it is how much we need each other. Financial loss. As many of us are unable to work in the way we are used to, or are not able to work at all, it is understandable that many will be facing financial worries post-quarantine. In a study reviewing the mental health outcomes of isolation after the SARS outbreak, Mutsuko Maihashi and colleagues found that 26% of respondents had psychological disorders 7 to 8 months after, and the greatest predictor of these was income reduction. Mayanzuk Zhuang and others investigated the prevalence of anxiety symptoms and anger in isolated persons 4 to 6 months post-MERS quarantine. They found that although these participants had only been isolating for 2 weeks, 3% of participants displayed anxiety symptoms, and 6.4% felt anger post-quarantine. Risk factors associated with these symptoms included financial loss, amongst other factors. This finding is particularly relevant given that those who experience symptoms of COVID-19 are advised to self-isolate for 2 weeks too. This suggests that one of the main contributors to negative mental health post-quarantine will be the impact on our financial situations. This highlights the necessity of looking after our mental health so we are better able to combat negative feelings even in the face of financial hardships. Dependency. If you read my first article, you will know about the negative consequences of quarantine. However, it seems that even after quarantine, these may continue. This may include alcohol overconsumption. In a study of hospital employees, Ping Wu and others found that even 3 years after the SARS outbreak, some participants experienced elevated alcohol abuse and dependency symptoms. It implies that self-isolation can lead to maladaptive coping strategies which carry on afterwards. The greatest predictor of this was having been in quarantine, or in a high-risk location such as a hospital. This suggests that dysfunctional coping strategies persist to mask negative feelings produced in isolation, which our key workers suffer from especially. This emphasises the need to look after our minds and bodies during this time, and particularly to look out for our key workers. For more advice on how we can do this, take a look at my last article. Summary. Overall, whilst research suggests that life may be different after quarantine, it seems clear that we must do all we can in order to minimise any difficulties we might face. Normal might not be what we're used to, but let's try to make the new normal as healthy, supportive and inclusive as possible. Don't forget to subscribe on the homepage to stay up to date, and happy learning.